of Alexandria Sanitation Authority. I would like to call to order the 908th meeting of the Board of Directors of the Alexandria Sanitation Authority, now known as AlexRenew Enterprises. Could I have a board member look at the agenda and make a motion to approve the agenda as it appears?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public in attendance?
No members of the public in attendance.
Traffic continues to plague
Yes.
our public attendance. Okay, we have a lot on the consent agenda, so let's, and we have to, Counselor, we have to approve them all at once, right? Correct?
Correct.
So let's have discussion on each or any of the items in the consent agenda. Mr. Carl, do you want to say a word or two about the amendments to the owner advisor contract or the RE&I contract?
Sure. So as you know, AlexRenew engaged an owner's advisor to help manage the implementation of AlexRenew. There's two items on the consent agenda. One is updating that contract. This will be the 7th year of the contract with the owner's advisor. It's now on a year-by-year basis. Previously, it was every 3 years we would renew that contract. We'll now need to review that annually for approval for the next 3 years to get us through the AlexRenew program. It had a total of 9 years of life. In addition to that, the owner's advisor budget is also included on the consent agenda, as well as the resident engineering inspection budget is included on the consent agenda. Both of those budgets are included in the capital cost for AlexRenew in the budget book that's up for approval this evening.
Is that the role you played? I'm sorry. Is this the role you played with Karen?
I was formerly the program manager for the owner's advisor team. That's now
Okay.
Mr. Calvin Coles.
So is there an individual yet named who would fill that role?
Yes, it's Calvin Coles, who he presented to the SAG last meeting.
Oh, okay, very good.
To be clear, the owner advisor is not an individual.
It's a team.
It's a team.
It's a rather large team, too.
It's a team. Correct. So that $162 million you saw for AlexRenew spend that we talked about throughout the budget process, that includes both of these budgets. It's the capital cost.
Mr. Carl, you want to say a word about the RE&I?
Sure. If you remember on the early program, we had a resident engineer inspection team for wastewater services. When those projects came to a conclusion, we procured a separate resident engineering inspection team for oversight of the AlexRenew Tunnel project. These are your day-to-day inspectors, our safety personnel, keeping an eye and ear in the field on progress on the AlexRenew project. They're separate from the owner's advisor, which are staff augmentation within AlexRenew. I believe this is our 3rd year budget with the RE&I.
My background in the IT business, you'd always have an we call IB&V, independent verification and validation of methods and products. It sounds like it's very much the same thing. It's an independent look at the product, correct?
Yes, they're performing safety oversight. They are looking at quality, QA/QC. All of our payment app processing comes through the resident engineer inspection. They do also have some cost estimating responsibilities, but primarily they're the eyes and the ears in the field, watching the construction work and ensuring it's built in accordance with our contract documents.
And they report directly to?
They report up to our owner's advisor, but it's a separate contract with AlexRenew.
Thank you. Now the The last item in the consent agenda is a revised communication policy. And this came in a little bit late, but there is a need to have a comm policy. But let's discuss this before we vote on the entire consent agenda. Dennis,
Mr. Chair, I had,
push your way to push ahead.
that's right. It's this old dog, a new trick. Okay. I had some concerns with a couple of things. One is a simple one related to political. Let's stick to the first one related to the press communications. And I think that it reads basically that board members can't have views they could say to the press. The press called and said it was a 3-2 vote on the board. Why do you vote the way you did? This wouldn't say a board member says they can't say anything. And I think the general direction of the policy in regards to the CEO, and I think also the chair being the spokesperson for representing the organization, I think is right. But to make it the only people for a public body, I don't think is the right way to go. And I think it's solvable by some of the R's and shalls to be should, which it kind of clearly says this is what we want to head, and where we want to head or where we want to end up, and then a bullet that says something like, however, nothing in this policy shall prohibit a board member from expressing their views to the media or to the public. Just so it's clear that if there is an issue to which there is some debate, that if a board member gets asked by a member of the public or the media, hey, why did you vote that way, then
They can express
it and not be in violation
Okay.
of the words that are proposed here.
No problem with that. Also, you want to discuss that a little more?
I do. I frankly, I'm a little uncomfortable voting on this right now, but I want to hear from the other board members. I just think this needs very careful consideration and discussion. I know there's some urgency to get a policy in place, but there's also a need to be thoughtful in how we do it. Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Dickinson. Please push your button.
This is
New technology.
new technology. Okay, great. My concern is that when a communication goes out, that the chair at least see what that communication is before it's issued. And if something has to be done quickly, let's say there's an incident, that the board members are advised in a reasonable period of time, hopefully before it goes out to the real world, if possible. I mean, if you have a fire here or something like that, or someone is injured seriously, that we know about it. I didn't see that in the communication policy.
I think there's nothing in the policy that would preclude that, but
No.
that's a good addition. Mr. Beal, you are chair of the governance committee. What do you think of this policy?
In responding to Mr. Jenks, I think there is a right of board members to speak to the press, but I think we also need to be careful that if the board takes an action or takes a vote, that the board speaks with one voice to the public. And I'm not sure how you balance that out. That I see your point on if we have differences of opinion, and if there's a public vote that's taken, but we do need to be able to speak with one voice. The other question I had was you you've taken out the part about political campaigns. And I'm wondering, what is the reasoning behind that?
And I recommended striking that and putting it in the conflicts policy. It's not really a communications policy. So that'll go to governance in the September meeting and be added to the conflicts policy. And we'll clarify there about political contributions and what is allowed. Mr. Chairman, is there an opportunity to make revisions to the policy that we have here to put it into place rather than tabling?
I'm looking for a way to square the circle. To get something in place perhaps that's less than perfect but better than what we have, but still polish it in a subsequent meeting. The social media one, I mean, frankly, our current board members don't spend a lot of time on it. But I think the way of the future is that could change. And I just, we need to have some sort of social media policy, but I don't think we've given it adequate thought for now.
So I think it's important to note that this policy is the policy that went to governance in April 2022. Based on that meeting, it got tabled. There was discussion. There were minor edits to be made. So Ms. Waters, myself, and Ms. VM went through and watched the video again, realizing that this policy was not up to date since April 2022. Went through, watched the video, and addressed the comments in the video and brought it to tonight's board meeting for consideration by the full board. It had never gone back to the full board after governance. It just got lost in the wash with the CEO search and things like that happened immediately after that April meeting. If you remember, that's the meeting where the Kenyatta had come to present to the board on their plan for the CEO search. So things got a little bit derailed after that meeting.
Remember that meeting.
When we look at the original policy, that original policy did not have anything around social media. That's why we brought the policy back to the board to the governance committee for their review and approval. So our communications department and the CEO at the time worked on the social media section, which did not have significant feedback from governance. It was these other minor edits. And we also agreed with Mr. Jinks to soften some of the language in the first section of the document.
I also think that you probably need to clarify a little better the last bullet about social media, because presumably you don't mean that disclaimer needs to be on every social media post. Only the ones that are relevant to AlexRenew.
Is there a way, I'm looking at the last sentence of the first paragraph, that individual board members other than the chair are not authorized spokespersons for AlexRenew. And I'm wondering, does that statement allow a board member, as Mr. Jinks's example was, to speak to the press of his opinions on something without having formal approval from the CEO?
Yeah, right now that's staying as a general rule, and then you read that with the provisions in the media press communications about authorization. But that could be changed to notification. That was the general idea, is there be some notification in advance so that AlexRenew can prepare to get a call from the media or to proactively reach out to them. And Mr. Beal, something you mentioned about the unified voice is that I saw this in another policy. It's something we could consider adding, is that if a board member has a dissenting vote and they want to speak to the media, that they also say that the board followed all procedures, there was just a disagreement, and that's a vote of no. Just something to make sure that the faith in the board's procedure is there. There's no assumption or presumption of wrongdoing.
Also, I would suggest that there are times where other board members are asked to be spokespeople. So, for instance, I'm thinking about the Ellen Pickering Award. Every year that sort of goes around. And we work with staff on talking points. So at that point, other members other than the board chair are spokespeople. So perhaps
just strike that last sentence.
Perhaps a clarification of specific times, or in conjunction with the board chair, or something to that effect, where it more accurately represents when we are asked to do that.
The social media part that gives me a little pause is that first bullet, bottom of page 1. Board members should not use their personal social media platforms to promote AlexRenew's mission or discuss official business. That's the first half of that sentence is very different than the second half. Promote AlexRenew's mission. For example, there's a great LinkedIn post almost every day about the good things going on in AlexRenew. If I like that, am I promoting the mission? I think I am. However, I would never use LinkedIn to discuss official business. See what I'm saying? I would be comfortable, because I think we do need a social media policy, and I think this is long overdue coming before the board. If we just remove that first sentence and said using personal social media platforms to engage in discussion may result in platforms being deemed a public forum, and that's something we want to stop, right? That's the risk. That's the danger. Because the second bullet, in some ways, conflicts with the first. Board members are encouraged to promote posts, public posts, and that would mean liking things, linking to things, retweeting, retweeting, all those things. I would be okay with the social media part if we just dropped either that first sentence, or at least the clause that says to promote promote AlexRenew's mission. It said, should not use personal social media platforms to discuss official business.
Right.
Yeah. That's what you want to control.
Yeah.
You do want us to promote
Yeah.
our mission.
And again, I do remember discussing this in the governance committee way back in, was it the spring? So if you make that change, I'm okay. Mr. Jenks, your change? We all know what that is? Or do you want to?
Can we recap the changes?
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Jenks, I'll address yours as well, I believe. So for the first paragraph, we will qualify the statement, individual board members other than the chair are not authorized spokesperson, unless authorized by the CEO and board chair. Then within the media and press communications section, we are going to change the shalls and musts to should, to language to strongly encourage rather than prohibit. And we're going to add a bullet Nothing in the policy would prevent a board member from speaking to the public. Okay,
I would also suggest to the media or the public.
media or the public, yes.
Media is kind of part of the public, but by putting it in, make it explicit that that's okay.
Okay. The social media section, we're going to keep board members should not use their personal social media platforms to discuss official business of AlexRenew. And then we're going to, if you skip over to the last bullet to address Adriana's concern, we're going to say board members using social media accounts to comment on AlexRenew matters are encouraged to use a disclaimer. And that's all I had. Did I miss anything?
One late arrival that we haven't discussed yet, and that's op-eds. Op-eds shall be submitted only by the CEO. What do we mean by the second bullet?
And that just addresses that the CEO may
So
work.
if the CEO and
Yeah.
the board member agree
Yeah.
on a topic, that's okay.
Yes.
That's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really how I'm reading it. How I'm reading it is that all op-eds are done by the CEO. However, the second bullet tells me that the CEO might work with board members, but the op-ed will still come from him or her, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that is correct. That's how it reads right now.
Okay, and is that what is intended?
I do not know what the governance committee.
This is how it was drafted at the governance committee.
Okay.
We have the ability to soften this
Yeah.
and work
It
as
was
a
a
group
year ago?
on op-eds, I think is where we would want to go as an organization.
The reason I bring that up, Mr. Carl, is in the early days of River Renew, Karen and I worked on op-eds. And I wrote them and she edited them in her own special way.
But they went out
But they went out with my name.
in
Correct.
your name,
Yeah.
which I think is appropriate at times.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our self-interest as an organization to have a resident citizen chair
Exactly.
be the one communicating to our residents of the community. So I think it could be fixed by only the CEO and or the chair.
The chair.
Doesn't have to be board. It doesn't have to be the chair. It could be board member.
I think if board members would like to write op-eds, work through the chair, and then we can review them as a group and get them posted. Is the intent,
So
is
with
how we would intend
Coordination.
to soften this existing language.
with review of the CEO and the chair.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't want this to be written so that any of us could just write an op-ed in speaking for AlexRenew without.
I agree.
Right.
Business that was, the business that was stricken out on political campaigns, had that been in a policy before?
That was that came up at the April 22nd, 2022 meeting to add in because there's discussion of the Hatch Act of applicability. So it was going to be new, but in reading it, it needs to be reworded, needs to be considered more carefully by the governance committee. So that's why you saw it in the first version, which was a mistake, and then it was struck out in the latest version.
But do you intend to put something in comparable
Yes, for the conflicts policy.
as far as political activity, a hatch type thing?
Yes.
You have to deal with that fairly carefully.
Yeah, but that's in a different,
Yes.
that's not in today's.
And that's why it's tabled so it can be considered by governance and worded carefully.
Back to the op-eds, do we want to add, this is only for op-eds that relate to AlexRenew, that you're not restricting, if I wanted to write an article about why the Washington Nats are a terrible baseball team, that I could do that.
Yes, and I think up front for this entire policy, a statement about this pertains only to AlexRenew matters. There's no restrictions on no silencing of the board members for anything that's unrelated to AlexRenew. And that can be handled in the opening paragraph applicable to the entire policy.
But if you had a situation where one of the members of the board wanted to run for political office, would that be allowable?
That's gonna kick it back to the conflicts policy, not this specific policy.
Okay.
I would wonder whether we have the authority to basically tell members who are appointed by city council, there are certain things that you're prohibited from exercising your rights as a citizen in matters that are unrelated to AlexRenew. So I don't think that should be it. I think it should focus, frankly, on what are the real conflicts of interest that relate to our actions as AlexRenew board members related to AlexRenew business and the political world. That's really I think the nexus of what needs to be in conflict of interest policy, and not running for office or campaign contributions or. And I need to cover whatever our federal grant requirements, whatever we're required to say, we as an organization are prohibited from doing. Our federal grants have a lot of boilerplate in it that apply to everybody.
Counselor, do you have a sense of the board with regard to the second bullet under op-ed?
Yeah, so we are going to change the language to make it clear that the board members other than the chair can submit op-eds, but it's in coordination with and approved by.
In coordination with and approved by.
Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Jenks, are you comfortable with these changes?
Yes.
You are. Other board members? I am now comfortable. I have squared the circle. Anything else on the consent agenda? Are we ready to vote on the consent agenda? All 6 items?
So the decision on the communication policy, it goes back.
No, we're going to approve it right now, tonight,
As
With
with
the-
those changes.
with these changes.
Those changes we just discussed.
Okay, fine.
With the changes, I think Counselor's got a good grip on
Yes.
exactly the wording changes we need.
Okay.
Everything I just went through will be changed.
I'd like to move the approval of the communications policy as amended.
Is there a second?
Are we just doing the one or are we doing all 6 together?
We're doing all 6 together.
Okay.
Included with that,
How do we phrase that?
we approve the consent agenda with including changes to the policy.
I move the approval of the consent agenda, including the changes to the communications policy as we discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Well, a very large consent agenda. Let's move right into unfinished business. Perhaps the most important thing we do. Approval of the rate adjustment and the budget. Counselor, does this have to be 2 separate motions or can it be one?
I believe it's 2 separate.
2 separate motions. We've had public hearings, and we've had subcommittee meetings on this topic for 4 months. And if we have a solution.
Have we received any comments by letter, emails from anyone?
No.
Good budget.
Good shape. We had a good budget presented to us. It was sound. Really, as we talked earlier, it's mostly driven by the debt service for AlexRenew is the biggest driver for the two rate increases for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. And that plus inflation and the cost of keeping our salaries and benefits competitive with the rest of the world. That's a challenge as well. So all very responsible and well thought out elements of the budget. And this is also a rate increase that's less than the AlexRenew part of it is less than what had been projected back when we started AlexRenew. So that's the news. Is either call it good news or less bad news. One or the other. So I think we're in good shape, and the fact that we've had really no public comment and no public speakers at the public hearing means that people accept the AlexRenew project. They know we got to do it. And staff have done a very credible job of selling it to the community, and therefore, when it comes to paying for it, people understand that's the next step.
As chairman of the Fiscal and Audit Committee, would you like to make a motion, sir?
I move that, what are we doing first? Rates?
Great.
I move we approve the 24-25 rate adjustment as proposed.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Beal. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Jenks, you're on a roll. You want to say
Okay,
something about the budget?
okay, the next step is to approve the budget that the rates are going to pay for and the capital improvement program as well. So I move we approve the 2024 operating budget and capital budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Caldarelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Congratulations, Mr. Akin.
Thank you, sir.
Survived the budget process. This is month 3, month 4. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now let's jump into new business. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carl, job order contracting presentation.
Thank you. I just want to note we're joined this evening by Ms. Vian and our new procurement manager, Mr. Igor Sherbakov, joining us here to answer any questions that might come up with respect to job order contracting. So we wanted to give the board a presentation this evening on job order contracting. It's our intent to come to the board in July for approval of up to three job order contracts that will help us execute work here at the plants and also within the collection system. So back in 2013, the Virginia Public Procurement Policy was amended to allow for job order contracting. And what a job order contract is are on-call type of contracts to perform task order work with respect to with an organization's business. In our instance, it'd be work at the wharf, work on our interceptors, or work at our pumping stations. Really, so there's some three main criteria that govern job order contracts. One of those there's an overall umbrella job order contract. Under that job order contract, you can issue task orders at maximum limits of $500,000 each. So that's the first criteria from VPPA. Those task orders cannot add up to more than $6 million per year under each job order contract. And then the third piece is VPPA allows a 3-year term for each job order contract. So they'd have to be bid after a 3-year period. They're good for 3 years. So what that would look like, so within our RFP that we put out last month, we asked for up to 3 job order contracts. And the way this would be structured is we would have 3 job order contracts with a maximum yearly limit of $6 million. And then under those job order contracts, there'd be various task orders issued to each job order contractor to perform necessary work here at the plant that's included in our capital budget and included in our infrastructure renewal and replacement budget. It is unlikely, very unlikely, that we would spend the $6 million limit per contract. When we look at our spending for next fiscal year, looking at these job order contracts, we're somewhere roughly around the 4 million mark for all three, looking at what needs to get done to the plant. So this is not looking at an $18 million contract in July. We're looking more at like $4 million over the course of the year. So we put out an RFP to be able to support our CIP and IRR work. And in that RFP, much like we did when we did River-Renew, we put in qualifications for personnel, experience, safety program and record, and then we asked for the cost component, which are coefficient multipliers. So for key personnel, we're really looking at 3 key personnel: project executive, project manager, and field superintendent from each of the teams. We're also looking at related project experience, and we want firms that have done work in water and wastewater specific work. Safety program and record, just like when we did the tunnel project, we're looking at their safety approach as well as their safety record. And that's really looking at their OSHA forms to ensure that they've got a safe culture of working. And then the last piece in the cost component within our RFP is what we call a coefficient multiplier. And that's the contractor's multiplier for overhead and profit. So the way pricing would be done in a job order contract is we'll establish a price book, and we're using an industry standard price book for this job, for these contracts, called RS Means. It's a construction price book that's been around for decades, that's now owned by Gordian, and we're using that as our unit price book for this contract. What a contractor would do in a specific task order, they go through the Gordian price book, estimate the cost, and then include their multiplier on top of that unit price items to come up with the total value for that specific task order.
A question for you. How does it deal with unionized versus non-union labor forces? The RS Means book.
RS Means has crew costs put together for it that support its pricing. It has loaded costs and unloaded costs. It does not deal with the unionized piece of that.
I
Igor,
can
is that
answer
correct?
that. RS Means has 2 separate price columns. There is a separate price column if the contractor were to utilize union labor. We have received questions during the solicitation process whether union labor will be allowed or dictated. So that was one of the things. But the book does allow for capturing the extra costs associated with union labor.
So the contractor then would go to the union, if the contractor is a unionized contract in this area of the country, we've got a mix of union construction and non-union construction. And so the contractor, would they go to the means book, look in the unionized column and say, there are the unit rates for the work that we're going to do?
Or it would get folded into the multiplier. I'm not sure how they would handle that situation. What we've asked the contracting community to do is use the bare costs in RS Means unloaded, meaning that overhead and profit are not included in each line item for pricing. That was our guidance. Igor, do you have anything to add to that?
During our discussions when we were creating the solicitation documents, the thought process was we are not to dictate whether they are to use union or non-union labor. If they are using union labor and they can show it, then we would use the RS Means column for the union labor when creating the cost estimate.
So whether they're union or not union won't it'll bear a relationship to the bottom line, because the unit costs are different, but it won't bear any relationship on the contract the decision to award the contract.
Not at all.
It will not affect the contract selection because these three contractors are not bidding each project amongst them. Because we have a third-party pricing book, we assume that we are able to establish a fair and reasonable pricing by using that book. So there's no need to compete each project between the three contractors.
I
But
understand.
they are competing on the coefficient multiplier.
Right, currently.
They are,
Hold on, currently they're competing around, these are weighted, just like we did with the previous RFQs and RFPs here at AlexRenew. They're competing on experience, and now currently they are competing on the multiplier. And that's weighted in the selection of the up to three that we'll select currently. They're competing on that. Once they're selected, we'll make a decision on how we round robin work with the contractors. Some may be more adept at doing pumps, some may be better at doing, buildings, things like that.
So the three contracts are not specific to, so in my head, what I imagined was there are three contracts and each contract is sort of an area of expertise. Is it just three blanket contracts and then whatever we need, then we go to whomever has the experience?
Correct. All of these contracts, all of these contracts that we're looking to select based on the RFP would have experience in wastewater, and will evaluate their key personnel safety and their multiplier as part of the RFP process. So when we go to execute a contract, all that's folded in. Any other questions on that piece? So every task order would go through this process that would be issued. Unit price times multiplier, and then we'd have a task order, we can issue a task order to move forward with the maintenance or renewal work. So right now, we went through in preparing the RFP and also in estimating that $4 million budget I kind of threw out earlier, we looked at what task orders would be performed in the FY 2024 budget. They're primarily under IR&R. They're primarily under the IR&R area. We have campus-wide projects focused on improving the reliability of our solids infrastructure, as well as our secondary settling tanks and infrastructure associated there. There are a few capital programs that could fall under the task order that include 4 Mile Run pumping station and upgrades to a tertiary system. And then we've got the ability when we have on-call contracts like this and job work contracts to be able to issue emergency work should something arise at the plant with respect to response to an emergency. That has to get done. It's either an issue with compliance or health and safety.
What happens if there's an emergency that exceeds the threshold?
Caitlin, why don't you explain how we handle an emergency work that exceeds $500,000?
What's allowed under VPPA or the Virginia Public Procurement Act is that we could, in theory, if there was something that came up, there is an allowance for an emergency contract that has to have backup or documentation as to why that emergency exists and why a contract needs to be executed at that time.
So, but it'd be quicker than going on.
It's a 7-day process. You post on EVA that we had to perform emergency work. We just follow the guidelines of VPPA for emergencies. So I think it's a 7-day turnaround. We issue the contract, post it to EVA for 7 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it just needs to be. We have to have documentation as to why it's critical work, and it would be something to do with that we can't meet permit unless we do this work. Something like that would necessitate emergency work.
Any ID work?
Once the CEO makes a determination that it's emergency as defined in the purchasing manual, which means the life or property is in danger, then just the portion of the work that's required to remediate the initial emergency can be done without competition. But it certainly is not to lead into a replacement of the entire system. Under the job contract, we are able to do fast turnaround work where it's not necessarily 24/7 on-call emergency. We thought about including a special adjustment factor just for 24/7 on-call work, but we decided that's not in our best interest, and we don't have enough of those where we would not be able to use the emergency purchase procedures.
Thank you. So I think given a lot of the work we do at AlexRenew is under that $500,000 limit threshold for task orders. And given that we're looking to start investing more on the plant side during the finalization of the AlexRenew program, we saw this job order contracting as being more efficient for the organization to quickly identify work and execute it without going through a long IFB process, coming back to the board for approval, and delaying necessary work that needs to get done on the plant. The other piece is it also lessens our staff burden. You know, writing an IFB, putting together contract documents is much more burdensome than getting together documentation to support task order pricing. That doesn't mean that we don't have standard specifications that would be issued with task orders. It just lessens the amount of time and burden that we place on staff for going out to bid for what we see as smaller construction work. The larger work, we'd still go out for IFB, that's over $500,000. It's scheduling. We see this as a much needed in terms of turning work around quickly. We can get a lot of work done with 3 contractors through task order work, much faster scheduling going for IFB. And then it gives us more flexibility. So as we work through our first year under this job contract, we can also understand where the strengths of our contractors lie and issue work to those contractors based on the strength of each team. As mentioned previously, some teams may be better with pumps, some teams may be better with buildings or other plant equipment than another team. So the scheduling of our job order contract, as I mentioned, our team is currently reviewing the proposals that came in response to our request for proposals. We will finalize that in July, and we come back on July 18th to the board to request endorsement of the 3 job order contracts. There'll be big picture contracts, total limit of $6 million with $500,000 task orders under each of those. The day after the board meeting, it would be our intent then to execute the job order contracts and start issuing task orders. Our team's already working on task orders so that as soon as we have the overall job umbrella contracts executed, we can issue our first round of task orders. And some of those task orders are mainly focused on our solids infrastructure. With that, we'll open it again for any more questions.
If I heard you correctly, Mr. Carl, primarily this work that we conduct using these contract vehicles would be the IR&R work?
The majority of the work is under IR&R. There were 2 projects we identified under the CIP that could fall under job. Some valving work at 4 Mile Run is one of those projects. That's included in the budget.
And off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember the size of the IR&R budget. Isn't it? It's
10 million?
10-ish million, give or take.
Right.
So it all fits nicely. Yeah.
Correct.
And the nature of the IR&R work is it's maintenance, right? It's largely maintenance and replacement and
Valve replacement, equipment replacement, things like that.
Things that are predictable and need to get done in a timely fashion.
Correct.
Any questions from the board? Seems like an efficient vehicle. Thank you. Very informative update. Thank you. update our board policy on procurement of construction management and design build. What's driving that apparently, Mr. Carl, is changes from Richmond, correct?
Correct. So the Virginia General Assembly enacted a new law this year that changed the requirement for public works. The current requirement for construction management at risk project, which is how this building and the nutrient management facility were built, were previously 90% of the work had to be bid out. Only 10% could be performed by the prime. That is now flipped. They're now allowing 90% of the work to be performed by the prime, and 10% of that work may be subbed out. And our design, build, and construction management policy has been updated accordingly.
Any idea of what brought about this change?
I'm unclear of why the change came up, but it's welcome for our industry.
It is, okay.
Yes.
But the statement we've added to the limitation doesn't apply to construction contracts involving infrastructure projects. So
No,
this really doesn't have the effect.
It does involve. So the 10% requirement no longer applies to
Okay, thank you.
construction projects involving infrastructure.
Could you define infrastructure in regards to our facilities? What is in and what is out?
The language was not specific around the language from the state. We kind of pulled the language from the state and included it in our policy. It wasn't, it was more or less vague to what the GA was getting at with respect to infrastructure.
How are you going to define it that the state hasn't?
Well, I guess one, we don't currently have plans to employ a construction manager at risk or CMGC job here at AlexRenew. I think any of our work here would be determined to be infrastructure work, in support of infrastructure work. So we would not have that restriction on subbing out 90% of the work.
Mr. Carr, you mentioned that this will be welcomed by the industry and may be beneficial for AlexRenew. Could you expand on that?
So if you remember, we went back and we looked at various procurement methods for the Riverview Tunnel project. We looked at design, bid, build. We looked at construction manager at risk, which this legislation affects. And then we looked at fixed price design, build, and progressive. We shied away from construction manager at risk because of the requirement included in VPPA, that 10% requirement. And AlexRenew had previously, because of that requirement, had some issues with administering contracts under CMAR. So it provides the contracting world greater flexibility on how they procure work under CMAR. It doesn't have to be, the majority of it does not have to be subcontracted out.
I would suspect that kind of the political interest and the corporate interest here were that facilities, it makes sense if you're building a school, you're going to have a lot of subcontractors. And so therefore having the kind of the 90-10 rule makes sense. But an infrastructure contractor, largely if you're hiring somebody, they're going to, if you're doing sewer lines, they're likely to have all of that as their own. You know, you hire Shirley Highway, you hire some of those folks, they're going to provide it all. They're not going to subcontract a lot out. And I would suspect that was the reason they said, you know what, that 90-10 rule really doesn't fit with the way the industry is organized in regards to building most kinds of infrastructure, roads or sewer lines, things of that sort. I would suspect, since they didn't talk about wastewater treatment facilities, they really didn't think that one through. This was really more focused on the infrastructure that most localities in the state build, which is roads, bridges, and sewer lines.
Thank you. Any questions before we vote on this topic? Is there a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
By Mr. Beal, second by Mr. Dickinson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, topic we can all relate to, electronic meetings. Ms. Counselor, would you like to say a word?
I'll take this one, yes.
Big
So,
change?
so 2023 General Assembly's been busy. They passed House Bill 1738 that strongly encourages state public bodies to provide access to meetings electronically. AlexRenew had already done that for our virtual meetings, and so if the board approves this policy, this update to the electronic participation policy moving forward, all meetings, including in-person meetings, will allow for the public to participate remotely, and they won't have to fight traffic. So there was a mistake if you look on the second page, in the second line, it says communication means at all meetings, subject to. We'll strike subject meetings and make that a new paragraph. So that would be the revision to the policy.
When does that policy go, when does the legislation go into effect, is it?
July 1st.
And how are we gonna do that? Do we know yet?
I'm sorry.
Do we already have the capability to?
For electronic comment, yes, we're already set up for it. It just wasn't stated as such in our policy.
Any further discussion? To summarize the policy, though, it looks as though we're trying to limit electronic attendance at meetings to no more than twice a year. If I'm reading that right.
Yes, or 10% of the number of meetings you have per year.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Calvarelli, seconded by Mr. Gill, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's jump to outcomes, and then we have one other item of business. That, can we do that? Mr. Carl, outcomes.
I would like to start with tunnel tours our Saturday morning. Everybody should have received an invite. I believe we have Ms. Calderelli. I don't think we got a response from you on tunnel tours. We have slots available pretty much at most times.
I think I have a conflict. What was the date again? I remember seeing
Saturday.
it and meaning to get to you.
Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 24th.
Yeah, I do have a conflict.
Okay. So we'll get with you and schedule a separate tour another time.
Apologies, I meant to get back to you.
Just let us know if there's any time that you're available. We can accommodate it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, the times, have they already been set? Okay. I don't know what time I'm to be there, or can I come? I will no longer be on the board, so am I allowed?
Yes, we sent you a meeting invite.
You did?
You're
I'll double check on that.
You're either at 8 with Mr. Hill.
Okay.
Dawn patrol.
Dawn patrol, okay.
It'll be dark in the tunnel.
Reminders. Reminders help.
And we'll provide all PPE, so if you get here, a few minutes early, that'd be helpful, so you can get your boot size and get everyone suited up to go into the tunnel
Where are we meeting? Is it
in the lobby.
In the lobby downstairs?
And if you don't have an invite, please shoot me an email and I will make sure you get it. So the only thing you need to know is show up in the lobby with long pants on. Do not come in shorts.
Closed-toed shoes, correct?
Boots.
We'll provide steel-toed boots to everybody. You'll have to wear muck boots given the condition of the tunnel and the water in the tunnel. I do want to note that in the monthly Financial report, we put some additional language in around delinquencies.
Around what, I'm sorry, say again.
I do want to note that in the financial report, we put some additional language in around delinquencies of where we're at.
Right.
We had a slight increase again since previous month. So throughout the month of May, we've actually been completing our own targeted phone calls, text messages with promise pay, paid advertisements on social media, and we've also included bill inserts over the month of May. This month, our staff is getting ready to mobilize to issue door hangers out to the larger accounts that do have delinquencies. That's the next step we're taking as we finalize the customer service program.
So am I to conclude they're still increasing at the same time you're getting rid of some of the backlogs? Some people are paying up.
We saw an increase in accounts and a slight increase in the value. So there's people rolling on that weren't 60 before that have now been 60 days past due. So there's 57 in addition from last month. So we went up to 1184.
Are these repeat people?
These are new accounts.
These are new people.
Correct.
New accounts. Oh.
That have gone past the 60 days. So that went up to 57 since last month.
But you, at the same time, you resolved a certain number.
Some have resolved, but not completely. We still have an increasing amount in value.
Yeah. Okay.
We're working to resolve it through the means described. At the same time, we are also working on getting our shut-off policy in place so that when we have the new customer service program, we have a policy for shut-offs.
Do you have an estimation of when you think you may start shutoffs?
Our new customer service plan will be in place by January, so it would be soon after that. February or late winter, early spring. And we're also investigating the potential for, where we can, administering liens. Doesn't help us in the short term, but we do have that avenue as well.
The state has a set-off debt collection program. Our authorities, I may have asked this question before, don't remember the answer. Are authorities permitted to go to the state and where this is where localities can take taxes, parking tickets, various bills due to the locality and submit them to the state, and then when the State Department of Taxation does income tax refunds, if they get a match, the locality gets their traffic tickets paid or their taxes paid before somebody gets their tax refund back. And it's quite successful. I don't know whether public authorities are allowed to use that program or not.
Like the Treasury offset program.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it was based on.
Popular with many. Mr. Carl, in the last month or so, any new insights into what's causing delinquencies?
No.
Still on a voyage of discovery. Okay. I think the rolling average that appears on page 5 might be a glimmer of hope.
Seems to be flattening, but
It's leveling.
Yeah.
You have in here that we have paid advertisements on social media.
yeah, so we're encouraging account holders to sign up for payment plans on social media. There's advertisements on social media that we've paid for to be able to see that. It's an animated advertisement to sign up for payment plans. Need help? We can help you.
Okay, these are for people who pay their bills electronically, or they get their bills electronically?
I mean, anybody could sign up for a payment plan.
How does social media, what's the algorithm that says basically, oh, we're gonna put AlexRenew ads into these social media, accounts?
So it's a method we're employing to see if we get any traction in this sort of interim while we're not able to do shutoffs. So we're trying to cast a net to see where we get our best bang for the buck. Our thought is going to be on door hangers, but we're trying these other methods as well.
Any other questions on the financials?
See on the financials, we haven't gotten to the community.
Nope. Next one is the CEO's report.
Yeah.
And I have a question on that. Mr. Carl, the 300 visitors in the month of May to this building is astounding. Share any insights into how's the word getting out that we have a wonderful 6th floor and people can rent it or use it?
So I guess I would state some of these visitors. We took the city on tunnel tours, so there were the groups that came out from the city. We also had city groups on the 6th floor using the 6th floor as meeting space. A lot of this has to do with the meeting space on the 6th floor.
A hypothetical, if a civic association, unnamed, wanted to have a meeting in this building, how would they go about scheduling that?
There's some forms online, or we could just email Caitlin or Alex, who manage our 6th floor bookings, or just go online. I can share the link with you all after the meeting. That's how most people find it, online or word of mouth.
And if the space is available at that time, we welcome all comers, really. That is wonderful.
So do we have a fee in the evening?
There is a fee.
How pricey is that?
I forget what the deposit and fee is. Do you remember?
It's $75 per hour.
75 an hour?
Yeah, to account for security and additional cleaning and stuff.
Mention that because I was delighted. I got an email. I received an email from, at one time I had a Boy Scout troop. And one of my Eagle Scouts sent me a picture of their Eagle Award right here. And his son was just becoming a Boy Scout. It made me feel pretty old, but it made me feel pretty good that the troop was still alive and that they were using this space. So, yeah, I'm glad that you opened the place to groups like that. That's cool.
Never would have happened in the old building.
They couldn't have found it.
And then for RiverRenew, the RiverRenew dashboard,
Right.
some major highlights for RiverRenew. I think just it's not mentioned in the dashboard because it happened a week and a half ago, but the tunnel boring machine is within the outfall 2 shaft. She mined into it about a week and a half ago. We're currently mobilizing equipment and survey crews to go down and excavate out the concrete within the shaft that she mined into to expose the cutter head, perform any necessary maintenance before we're off to outfall 1. So it's a major milestone, 4,200 feet in. During that push between AlexRenew and the outfall, on the back of the board dashboard, you'll see that we mined our best day at 130 feet. We published that on social media as well. Got a lot of traction behind Hazel getting from here to outfall 2. Throughout the entire alignment, we've not seen any settlement in any of our extensometers or ground monitoring points, which is a testament to the team we selected to build this job.
That is tremendous news.
I think the other major piece that you'll see when you come out to the site is we've begun putting waterproofing on. We're starting to finally see, in addition to the tunnel, final concrete liners start to be placed and final concrete work to be placed on the job. The first was the pumping shaft slab that was done about a month ago, but now you'll see that all the waterproofing on the inside of the shaft walls is complete. We're getting ready to pour the final concrete liner of that shaft. When you take the tour on Saturday, you'll see all the rebar tied in half moons around the site. We're past half spent on the entire program. We're at $322 million on page 5. More than half of that has come from the local region. And then looking ahead on page 6 for the community. Our next SAG meeting, we held a SAG meeting in May. Our next SAG meeting is in July. We hosted community days in May, so back on May 6th, we had 140 people come out to tour the tunnel from the public. And we're also working to start to message on the Jameson Avenue closure months in advance. You'll see a message board out on Jameson Avenue announcing the closure. And we're supporting that with detours and bike route detours as well. And the last page, you'll see the highlight of Hazel setting her record. You can see how tight it is in the heading of the machine on that last page of the dashboard that you'll additionally see on Saturday when we get everybody up in there. It's super tight.
Question, on the pile driving, have we gotten any complaints?
We got some we have not had any direct complaints come into AlexRenew, but one of our stakeholder advisory group members, Mace Carpenter, did say that he had got some questions from his community members that live near Tobacco Key regarding the pile driving and how much longer it was going to go. We're just about halfway done, anticipating end of July, early August for completion.
So that's down at Pendleton.
That's just at Outfall 1, correct?
Okay. Are we doing any more pile driving here on Huff's Run?
We're pushing sheets. We have not had any complaints about the sheeting.
Pushing sheets.
Is different than driving a pile. It's vibratory. So as we build the hooks for an interceptor, we pull sheets from where they're located, backfill the pipe, push, excavate, and repeat.
Still is an amazing project whenever I walk down there and go by there, trying to figure out how all the pieces are fitting together. I'm glad you know.
I have a question. In the past, the dashboards included a calendar look ahead for the next year. Is that something we could include again?
6 months?
Just for AlexRenew board meetings and
Yeah,
committee meetings.
the board calendar.
Oh,
Yeah.
the board calendar.
Yeah, correct. We will include that.
Speaking of which, Mr. Chair, this is going to bring up the question of the timing of our retreat.
Raise the question, sir.
Given when we set the retreat date for January, the assumption was we wouldn't have our new board member until sometime in the fall. Due to the work chair and mayor, things got accelerated. We will have our new board member far before then. And so I was wondering whether or not it would make sense then to move the January retreat date back into the fall. Let's say, mid to late October or something like that.
I think we have to look at that in the context of two things, which might be in conflict. Right? How does that align with sort of our budget process? But also realistically, how does that align with probably a very busy period for AlexRenew? So, Mr. Carr, why don't you take that under consideration? I am aware of how much work goes into these retreats. These don't organize themselves. And to do one well does take a lot of lead time. So But I do understand Mr. Jenks's point that there's no better time to plan for the future than in the near term. So maybe we could pull it in a month or two, that might help. But if it conflicts with some critical river renew dates, give it careful thought.
Yeah, just looking ahead for the board, we've got governance in September, a board meeting in September. In October, we have the audit. So we'll have a finance and audit committee meeting in October along with the board meeting in October as well. So just, that's where we're looking right now.
Because I think at a strategic, I've been looking very carefully at our strategic outcomes and our 4 statements of strategic intent. And I think they're good, but they might need to be revisited. So I think that's probably all we need to discuss at a retreat. But even that will require a fair amount of lead time. So good. Think about it in the context of all the other things going on. November's slow too, but can be slow.
We landed on January just to get through the holiday. That's how we ended up to January. We saw governance and finance committee being in October, and then we get into November with Thanksgiving, and then the holiday in December and early January just seemed like it'd be calm. That's how we landed there. We didn't think we'd be where we are right now with respect to the new board member.
Different spot. Any other business before I bring up a final topic? One of our long-standing board members is leaving us. And that cannot go unnoticed. So we have a variety of things we're going to present today. Mr. Dickinson. And if the board will allow me, I'd like to read the proclamation. Feel free to. I'll read it. Don't worry.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, have a seat. Have a seat.
Let's keep it, John.
Yep. This is AlexRenew Enterprises Board of Directors resolution recognizing the contributions of Mr. William Dickinson. Whereas the City of Alexandria, Virginia Sanitation Authority, known as AlexRenew, is governed by an appointed 5-member citizen board to which Mr. William Dickinson was appointed in 2013. Whereas Mr. Dickinson served as Secretary-Treasurer from 2013, 2015, and 2016, 2023. Whereas Mr. Dickinson served during the implementation of the nutrient management facility and accompanying athletic field, the construction of AlexRenew's Environmental Center, and the River Renew program. Whereas Mr. Dickinson's experience in the regional water and environmental sectors enhanced AlexRenew's ability to serve its local community with agility, empathy, and better understanding of local needs. That's very true. Whereas Mr. Dickinson on multiple occasions served as judge of the Ellen Pickering Environmental Service Award, an award given to a deserving Alexandrian jointly with the City of Alexandria in memory of Ellen Pickering, long-serving AlexRenew board member. Whereas Mr. Dickinson's thoughtful questions and local civic involvement proved valuable as the authority reviewed rates and financing options in its newly acquired CSO assets. Whereas Mr. Dickinson's love of Alexandria's history led to connections within the community to ensure equity and inclusion of long-standing African-American oral histories to be incorporated within the city's largest infrastructure project, River Renew, for future generations to learn from and respect. Whereas Mr. Dickinson was a longtime friend and strong supporter of AlexRenew and its mission of transforming wastewater to transform our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that AlexRenew Board of Directors hereby wish to acknowledge and thank Mr. William Dickinson for his many years of dedicated service on behalf of AlexRenew. Adopted June 20, 2023.
Thank you, that's very generous, very generous.
Now, Council, we have to vote on this.
Yeah.
We have to
right.
vote on this.
I can't vote.
Give Eddie on a minute to get that.
Oh.
See what the bid was.
We have to make a motion, right?
So moved.
Second.
Where did 10 years go?
I don't know, they go too fast.
When you first joined the board, we were in the old building,
That's
the old
right.
room. You had to go through chain link fence. Remember that?
The fellow who encouraged me to apply for this position was Ed Simonian.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had a high regard for Ed, a real professional. There was never any controversy with the city clerk. Matter of fact, he was shocked one time when he had to run. He had to put together a poster to actually run. Someone ran against him. That was a shock to Ed. And he worked very hard at his campaign, and he won. But I remember coming to the old building.
Mhm.
I didn't even know this building, that this operation was here.
And you've lived in the city since 19.
Well, since
Something.
1978, you know, you take it for granted, these
Right.
things for granted. And I remember meeting with Karen and seeing the plan. And we talked. I was very impressed with her. But then we talked about what I found. I didn't know anything about this place, and I wanted to learn. I had been on the Regional Park Authority board for 10 years, but yet I was termed out, and I wanted to put the land and the water together because they do fit.
Mhm.
And I was impressed with Karen a whole lot. And then we talked about the public,
Mhm.
what they understood about this place and what we did. And I was so pleased with her when she brought in Lisa Van Ripper, I believe her name
Right,
is.
that's right.
This lady who had done a lot of work in marketing, nothing in water.
She worked for CarMax.
That's right. I thought, Karen, you've gone over the edge. No, she was absolutely right on.
Right.
And I remember, you may remember too, our first meeting down at Cora Kelly, when we had the public hearing to check off the block of renewing the pumping station down there.
Right.
In the public, we tried explaining what that pumping station was all about. And the public actually got interested. And just pushing us more to learn more about water and what we did. And they wanted to teach their kids of what that was all about. And we shouldn't camouflage it. They saw the potential for maybe jobs, all sorts of things. And I think it really turned our thinking around. And that's something I've been so proud of in this organization, is that most public authorities don't do a very good job of listening. They have a lot of authority, that's why they're called authorities. And you stood that on its end with Karen, the team here, and I think that's made a huge difference.
Yeah.
When the board or when our CEO goes to a group to educate them as to what's going on, listens to their questions respectfully, maybe even change some of the things we're going to do because of that public input. And the public says, thank you. And we will pay that bill because we care about our river. And we're going to pay for it. That's remarkable. I've seen that happen in 10 years. This place here, that we are open to the public, and the public learns here. And that's what it's all about. So I have learned a great deal. I'm going to miss the place and this operation, but I may be that person not caught in traffic and actually attend a meeting. You never know. But thank you all. I've made some good friends. I've learned a lot. And there's a new team here. And organizations have to renew themselves. It goes along with our name, renewing. And organizations renew themselves. So I look forward to my replacement coming on here, and I know she will serve you well.
Well, you have strengthened our ties to the community, and I hope you can continue to do that in a emeritus role.
Okay, well, I always speak fondly of you.
Now, we do need to vote on this. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Thank you.
Now, this doesn't end. There's one more.
Uh-oh.
This is that's the official recognition. This is the semi-official. Or what's the word, less than official? Every board member, when they leave, get the Song of the Sewer. And those of you of a certain age, that does not include you, remember the original Ed Norton. Not the current Ed Norton, the original Ed. From the Honeymooners. And the Song of the Sewer, Bill, we didn't have time to practice the song. We didn't. You might remember when Ed Simonian left us, and when Bruce left us, we did sing it.
You did, that's right.
So I'm just gonna say the words, and you guys can think of the melody.
But you have a piano now, you ought to brought it in and play it.
This is, we sing the song of the sewer. Of the sewer, we sing this song. Together we stand, with shovel in hand, to keep things rolling along. And that's
what we do here.
I mean, this is 60 years old, but the importance of this institution and the importance of the board to the institution to keep things going.
Yep.
That's what this is about. And the plaque on this says, Bill Dickinson, AlexRenew Enterprises Board of Directors 2013-2023, in appreciation from your fellow board members for guiding AlexRenew through a period of great transition. And this is something you can
I know.
hang in some room of your house. And I hope after the board meeting today, maybe the board members can sign the back.
That'd be great.
So
That'd be
you
great.
remember us. And anyway, here it is.
Okay.
And I believe on YouTube, there are actually clips of Ed Norton singing.
I shall look for it. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
I believe that does it for.
There won't be any Jackie Gleason yelling at you.
We have a motion to adjourn. Oh,
There's cake.
oh, there is cake. So we can eat cake outside.
So everyone knows there's cake.
We'll convene in the other room after the meeting for cake. Continue to celebrate. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Out. Bill, it's the last official act.
Okay. Move.
Seconded by Mr. Dickinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Now we eat cake.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bruce Johnson got the whole, the entire, it's actually reference to a guy.
We have a write-up policy.
Oh,
I just can't remember what it says.
Oh, yeah, yes.
During the meeting?
It's ancient. No.